I'm now going to invite up Allie Matthys. Allie is the lead organizer for Justice Unites Savannah Together. A few years ago, we had a gentleman from the organization DART who came to a bunch of the clergy in the area and said, we want to galvanize you to make sustainable legislative change with this new social justice organization, a way to do so much to change the way things are done. And so we started it at a perfect date, as many of you know, March of 2020. I'll let you think about that and see why that was a perfect date after a year and a half. And we decided to start it even though the pandemic had come. Over the last 2 sessions, we have had $9 million put into the community's fund for low-income housing. First $7 million from the national funds that were given to us, and then last year $2 million from the funds. At our big event last year, we had the most people who went. The idea is to galvanize people. I think we had 75 or 80 of us go to the big event where we had the city manager agree to give the money. And of course, we hired last summer an incredible lead organizer. We're so excited that she's been in our community. Allie is from Valparaiso, Indiana. She went to Valparaiso University. She worked in the prison system with people on parole for 5 years, I believe, right? Before she started at the DART affiliated, the same organization we have here in Clearwater. Then she became last summer our lead organizer here, and she has been an incredible person to work with. We are so thrilled to have her here. So ladies and gentlemen, this is Allie Matthys. You can speak into both mics.
All right. Well, thank you, Rabbi. That was a generous introduction. So like he talked about, JUST is an affiliate of the DART Center Network. So the DART Center is comprised of 31 affiliated congregation-based community organizations through 10 states, including Florida, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Nebraska, Ohio, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and of course here in Georgia. So each organization has a wide range of experience and accomplishments, but collectively, DART affiliates have leveraged over $450 million for affordable housing to make sure that people aren't priced out of their communities. DART affiliates have also ensured that more than 650 schools have fair discipline policies, creating a break in that school-to-prison pipeline. And then thanks to DART's Florida Criminal Justice Collaborative, 31,000 fewer children have been arrested in the state of Florida since 2014. So DART affiliates have also leveraged nearly $950 million for public transportation to making sure that people can get to work, back home, or wherever else they need to go. And these are just some of the accomplishments that DART affiliates have been able to get done since the beginning in 1982. So Rabbi talked a little bit about JUST here in Savannah and talked about how we were able to get $7 million of the American Rescue Plan funds to the Savannah Affordable Housing Fund back in 2021, just 1 year of being an organized organization. And like he said, starting in the beginning of the pandemic was something that I can't even imagine, but JUST's founding members knew just how important having a justice ministry in their community was. And I think that is a true testament to the ownership that they have over this organization. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our work and our motivation, and then kind of just the overall process as well. So our work is rooted in biblical inspiration. So Micah 6:8 says, "And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God?" So I think it's safe to say that we do a pretty fair job of the faithfulness ministry, right? We come to services, we have other activities that encourage our walk with God, and we encourage each other in this ministry about 52 times or more a year in the weekly worship service. And same with Mercy Ministry, right? We do a pretty good job of the Mercy Ministry as well. We have backpack buddies. We, feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, minister to those in prison, etc. And we also do a pretty good job of Mercy Ministry as well, because it's kind of like that instant gratification. It's easy to do right away. But justice is a little bit differently. Biblically, justice is holding accountable the king and other decision makers accountable for the fair treatment of all people. and especially the poor, the widowed, and the orphaned. And we follow this biblical example of holding our mayor or city council or school board or others accountable for justice. And we tend to do a poor job on the justice requirement because these systems are big and powerful, and individually we just are not able to hold them accountable for fair practices by ourselves. But when we have, other congregations in the community come together, there is power in people, right? So, and we get this inspiration from the book of Nehemiah. So Nehemiah is a cupbearer of the king of Persia, and he goes back to his homeland, Jerusalem, to restore the people's identity by rebuilding the wall around the city. And in chapter 5, people raise an outcry of injustice to Nehemiah. Because of a drought, crops failed, and people were forced to borrow money to buy food and pay taxes. And when that drought continued a second year and the people couldn't repay back their loans, the moneylenders took everything, right? Their fields, their vineyards, their orchards, and even forced people to sell their children into slavery. Nehemiah was angry when he heard these outcries, and he thought it over. He had two choices, right? He could have done mercy ministry and maybe opened a food pantry or done credit counseling, or he could hold the moneylenders accountable for justice and fairness. And this was Nehemiah's choice. But Nehemiah, even with the status of the cupbearer of the king of Persia, knew he couldn't do it alone, and he needed more power. So that's why in verse 7 of chapter 5, it tells us that he organized a great assembly of people and brought the moneylenders before it. He knew there was power in numbers, and when he pressed during the assembly, the moneylenders agreed to restore everything that they had taken from the people, and they did as they promised. So to do justice, we must be like Nehemiah, and we must build our capacity to organize great assemblies here in Savannah as well. So we kind of have a yearly process that I'll kind of quickly go over. So first we listen and connect, right? So every year we share stories and values through a series of listening sessions led by trained congregation leaders. Themes emerge and congregational members gather to democratically select specific priorities that we are going to work on for that year. So we start our year in the fall, and our justice ministry team leaders from each congregation are trained on how to lead and host a sacred conversation. Some of you might have had one or been to one. These small group meetings serve three primary purposes: to build and strengthen relationships in our congregations, to listen to our congregants about what struggles they are currently experiencing so we know what community problems are affecting Savannah, and then the third purpose of these small group meetings is to build up our justice ministry network by asking people to commit to being network members. After all of the congregations have completed their sacred conversations, we report back as a group and narrow down the topics to bring forward to our first big assembly of the year, the annual assembly. The annual assembly is where the network members and team leaders of JUST come together and vote on which community problem we will spend the next couple of months researching and finding a solution for. This year, we voted to address education and continue our work with affordable housing, which leads us to our second process, which is the one that we are currently in right now. Research committees are formed and deepen their understanding of the problem surfaced by interviewing subject matter experts and analyzing data. Potential solutions come from looking at best practices in other cities, new proposals from experts, and sometimes just common sense. Research committees are hard at work meeting with the mayor, the city manager, city council members, school board members, university professors, etc., on the topic area that they are working on. These meetings are meant to gather information and build relationships with officials to see how open they are to fixing these problems that we have identified. Both of our research committees right now have been busy with research meetings. The Education Committee learned that in 2019, 67% of third graders failed the state reading test. And our fears were confirmed when we received data from 2022 that showed that only 28% of second graders are considered to be on track for learning readiness in math and literacy. We also learned through our research this year that the city manager did allocate $2 million of general revenue funds to the Savannah Affordable Housing Fund, and a huge success that we can attribute our work from. At the second assembly of the year, the rally, the organizations will hear reports from the research committees and vote to approve the solutions that we want to see implemented in our community. And then just a few weeks later, we start the third process of our yearly cycle with direct action. So in the spring, Just brings together large numbers of people of faith to an event known as the Nehemiah Action. This is the assembly where we ask our committed network members to come and bring 3 additional people with them, since we know that we are stronger with more people. Testimonies are given to show how the problems are impacting people's lives, research solutions are presented, and negotiations take place with our local authorities. Its purpose is to demonstrate broad public support for proven solutions and to get local officials to make commitments that will lead to system-wide improvements. Now, the Nehemiah Action can be tense, right? When we're asking for something to be changed, it means that we're not happy with things are currently. And as people of faith, we do not seek out tension, but it is our responsibility to lift up the tension that our community is facing and make sure that the people that have the power to fix the problem actually do. The Nehemiah Action is not a confrontation with a person, but rather a confrontation with the problem that we want solved. Our work doesn't stop there, though. Even if the public officials agree to implement community change, we spend the next process monitoring the progress to ensure that the public officials are doing exactly what they said that they would do. This is the last process in our cycle called the monitoring. The last assembly of the year is at the beginning of summer called the celebration. This is where we celebrate what we have accomplished, go over what still needs work, and start our local investment drive. Each of our network members are asked to personally invest $200 each year to sustain this work, and our goal is to be completely self-sufficient so we don't rely on government grants, which obviously can restrict our power or problems we work on. It is not a requirement of network members to invest, but we know that if each network member does invest that amount, we would achieve self-sufficiency. So if you aren't yet a network member for Just through Mickve Israel, I want you to take a moment and imagine what Savannah would be like if the 67% of children in our public school systems were not failing at reading. I want you to imagine what it would be like if there was not one homeless family that needed more mercy. And I want you to imagine what it would be like if Savannah really was like heaven on earth, like God intended it to be. This congregation will have their network meeting this coming Tuesday at 6 p.m. to prepare for and plan our turnout for the Nehemiah Action. And if you want to become a network member, or if you already are, you should plan on being there. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Wait, don't go. Thank you very much,
Yeah,
Allie.
absolutely.
That was wonderful. I'd like to mention that this was recorded because we're recording the streaming, the stream by Jason, who's recording the streaming of this. So you can review her talk. There was a lot of meat in there, and
Yes.
we really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Now, on a personal level, I understand the rabbi gave you the Shalom You All T-shirt. Is that right?
I do,
Yeah.
yes.
But wait, there's more.
Okay.
There's the hat.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I appreciate it. Thank you.